IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling, and so begins a week of championship podcasting right here. Irish Breakdown, along with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a great day. How are you today, Vince?
I'm fantastic.
I kind of know how your day has gone so far. So
that is true. Made the day go by very quickly, though.
In the column of things we can't talk about on the show.
I know, right? But I have it's interesting because and many people have this going on at their job is you have training, you have special training, right? So I have to be for the next 3 days. I'm off campus training all day long. So that'll be very interesting because I'm training to be a trainer. So people are gonna have to learn from me.
Okay,
it's all said and done. So that'll be
interesting.
That'll be interesting. How to put kids in chokeholds and no, just kidding.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, professional holds.
Yeah,
legal holds.
Right, right.
Kind of
the how to disarm.
Yes,
or conflict. I was looking for the right word.
Yeah, exactly. Or if it's a special ed kid who needs to be protected from themselves, like that kind of a thing. So yeah. So, but apparently it takes 3 days to learn how to do that. So that's what I'll be doing. Yeah.
All right.
So
it kind of breaks up the routine a little bit.
It does break up the routine. That is for sure. My kids are not very upset that they have to ride the bus over the next 3 days. So
I bet I didn't think about it that way.
Yes. Yeah, because
kids in the bus, man. Oh man, like I remember, I hated taking the bus when I was young, but we didn't have any choice because we lived kind of out of town, and so we had to take the bus. But like my kids couldn't stand the bus. Everybody does everything they can to get off the bus as soon as they can.
100%, 100%. And they can't go with their older brother because he only goes to school like half days because he's got dismisses and all this stuff because he's a senior. So. Yeah, the Twins aren't very happy about that.
I've got a question for you to kind of kick things off here today. Right. Are we, you and me specifically, are we unbridled homers, do you think? Because I'm asking you this because the last show you and I did together before the Orange Bowl, Notre Dame, Penn State on Thursday, you and I did a mailbag show last Wednesday, and there was some feedback. Some people who are mad at us, like, stop giving us all these homer takes. Give us some real analysis. Yeah. They thought we were just giving a bunch of homer takes on Notre Dame, Penn State. And I just feel like it's one thing if people want to call you an unbridled homer. I mean, let's just.
I don't know about unbridled.
That's, even a homer, to whatever degree you want to put it. I mean, I feel like that's one thing. I might even go so far as to call you an unfringed homer, or an unhinged
maybe.
Unhinged homer, like you don't even try to hide it sometimes.
That's true.
But if anything, people usually, like come at me for not drinking enough of the blue and gold Kool-Aid, right? Like,
yeah, that's true. You have been a Debbie Downer at times. When it comes to Notre Dame's success potential.
My guy, Matt, keeps throwing it at me that, you didn't even think Notre Dame was going to make it to the playoff.
That's right. Called you.
So I don't know. What do you think, Vince? Like think about our analysis of Notre Dame, Penn State last week.
I thought it was very fair of the Notre Dame.
A bunch of homer takes? Were we that far over the top? I felt like we were very confident in Notre Dame.
Sure.
Based on the body of work, like specific to the two playoff games, each of the two teams had played, and especially after Notre Dame beat Georgia, I think that's really what pushed our confidence.
Sure.
But like I had some very specific takes on the matchup with Notre Dame or with Penn State, Notre Dame with Penn State. And I don't know. What do you think?
Well, listen, I said very clearly, I said this game could have three outcomes. Notre Dame wins at the last second. Penn State wins the last second, or Notre Dame blows them out. Like those were my three potential outcomes of this game. One of them came true. So that's not a homer take, first of all, saying that Penn State could win a close game because they almost did win a close game. So I'm not sure how that's a homer take, number one. And number two, we gave Penn State all the flowers. Now, I said, look, their defense is really, really good.
I don't know if okay, go ahead.
I said their defense is really, really good. I said I have questions about their offense because when your best offensive player is a tight end, I don't know if you can score enough points.
Yes.
Well, guess who never got into the end zone? The tight end.
The tight end. But my take on, this whole thing all along was what? These were two fairly evenly matched teams. But what I kept coming back to is a little bit along the lines of what you were talking about. What did I keep talking about last week? Who can make more explosive plays, right? And specific to Penn State, I didn't think that outside of Tyler Warren, the tight end, and a little bit with the running backs, Singleton and Allen, I didn't think Penn State had the kind of dynamic players who could make enough explosive plays. Now, to their credit, those three were able to make some explosive plays, but what happened? Wide receivers didn't catch any passes, right? Because like we had the Penn State troll who was in here last week. Oh, they've been explosive. Look at these last couple of games. And that was my whole point. Yeah, look at the last couple of games against Boise State and SMU. That's as explosive as your guys have looked all year. That's as good as your wide receivers have looked all year. And what happens? Notre Dame shuts their wide receivers down. It played out exactly the way that I thought it was going to play out, that Tyler Warren would be the guy, who could make the most plays. And again, Singleton to some extent. And then look what else happened. Notre Dame's most explosive player, Jeremiah Love, did not have one explosive play. Neither did Riley Leonard. But Mitchell Evans, Jadarian Price, Aeneas Williams, Jaden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse all did. 5 guys. Like, again, that was my whole take on this game. Which offense was going to have, could make more explosive plays? And, again, like Penn State stacked up with their core guys, but Notre Dame's guys, kind of off script a little bit. They were able to get other play, and like, look at the Aeneas Williams, catch. I've heard a lot of people really praise Riley Leonard for the throw, and it was a really nice throw that Riley Leonard made to Williams on that 30 play. But that was also, especially for a running back who hasn't been asked to do much of that, that was a really good catch by Aeneas Williams. Yes, it was. And like over the shoulder, in stride, and kind of the way he had to contort himself a little bit to look back and get. That was a hell of a catch by Aeneas.
A running back, not a wide receiver, a running back. Yeah, absolutely.
And Penn State had no one they could go to off script and make those kind of plays. And that was basically what I saw the matchup coming down to, was the ability to make more explosive plays. And, look at 54, and they can talk about, well, the DB slipped and, everything else. And look, Jaden Greathouse made a huge explosive play, the offensive play of the game, really, in that game. And I think second to that, Williams, because like Williams made back-to-back explosive plays. He followed that pass play with a 15-yard run that ends up setting up Leonard's touchdown.
And then it also came down to quarterback play. I mean, bottom line, everybody was talking about, Drew Aller and the NFL and NFL. Like, I can't tell you how many times I heard in the pregame from whoever, analysts, excuse me. Oh, NFL eyes are going to be on this game. They're watching Drew Aller, blah, da, 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 da. He was the second best quarterback on the field. Third, if you count Angeli, because he had a hell of a game too. So and again, like backing up your point, like you doubted Drew Aller all week long. Like that was part, and so if someone sees that as being a homer, well, did you watch the game? Because that also played out. Your point about Aller was exactly right. He wasn't nearly as good as everyone was building him up to be. Because they needed him to come and play in this game, right? He had to elevate. And at the end of the day, there were many more questions about Riley Leonard than Drew Aller going into 100%. That game. And look, Riley Leonard made a couple of mistakes, and that's part of this whole thing as well. Riley Leonard made a couple of mistakes, and in spite of that, Notre Dame lost the turnover margin. And, as I said in my tweet, after the game, and they also obviously lost a couple of significant offensive linemen, right? And they still managed to find a way to go out there and win. Notre Dame had every excuse to lose that game with the way the injuries played out and, and all that. And they didn't. I mean, the bottom line, they didn't. And the guys, look, Nicholas Singleton, which, by the way, hilarious. These videos of like these people watching the games, they live stream themselves, like watching the games. And then, so you see them after the fact. And there was this one Penn State guy who was clearly like an Eagles fan, Penn State fan, whatever. he doesn't even know the names of the players, but he was like devastated that Penn State lost. He's like, Singletary again. I'm like,
gosh.
oh my God, dude, stop. But anyway, back it up. The running backs had a good day. The offensive line had a good day. They had a good first half. And in the second half, when they couldn't do that, they needed Drew Aller to step up, and he didn't, right? That's not a homer take. That's what happened. And like you said, I talked about the fact I didn't think he could do it, and he didn't do it. Is he a better pro prospect than Riley Leonard? Yeah, probably. He's got, the build. He's got the gun. He's all these different things. But on this day, he got outplayed by Riley Leonard. So that was a big difference in this game. I mean, yeah, 2 DBs fell down. They were forced to fall down. They didn't just slip. They didn't just accidentally fall over. They didn't trip over the grass. They were forced to fall down because of the move that moves, plural, that Greathouse put on them.
No one's making excuses for Riley Leonard throwing the interceptions, right? So why are we making, why? I get it if you're a Penn State fan, why you're making excuses for why 2 DBs fell down, like not crediting Jaden Greathouse for the move, but they're not, again, nobody's making excuses for Riley Leonard making a couple of bad interceptions. Look, course of the game, bad plays are going to happen. That's
100%.
Just the way it goes.
It's just, it's also funny to me that
there have been a lot of excuses every step of the way for why Notre Dame has won, though.
Well, that's also, and look, if Notre Dame happens to win this game in a week, there's going to be excuses as to why they won that game too. So, I mean, it is what it is, but look, Drew Aller threw 3 interceptions in that game. One, legitimately, there was a defensive hold. Second one, not so much.
Yeah, so exactly. Phantom hold, got bailed out. And, again, this can sound like homerism when we're sitting here, critiquing officials and stuff like that. But we got to call it like there's we all know that Christian Gray was held on that perimeter run, out in the open. Like when there's officials, there's an official standing right over there because there's an official on each sideline. And you're telling me that you didn't see that? I mean, that was a blatant hold that didn't get called. And you just, like Marcus Freeman told his team in the course of the game, hey, it's us against them and them, something to that effect. And they were able to overcome that.
The bottom line was, okay, here's the thing. If you're looking at it through Penn State lenses, this is a Notre Dame show. So we're talking about Notre Dame. You can make the case that that's a homer call or whatever, but we said Penn State was a good football team. But we also said we thought Notre Dame was going to win.
But there were Notre Dame fans who thought we were just
really
too big a homer.
No, I don't know what to say to that then, because look, Notre Dame won the game, so I don't know why you're upset. Or I guess
we felt
they probably put those
again. We felt confident in Notre Dame, but for me personally, I always felt like Notre Dame and Penn State were 2 fairly evenly matched teams. And, even back before the playoff bracket was announced and all that, my feeling about Penn State was they don't have enough dynamic weapons to, to ultimately, to beat a team like Ohio State, to beat a team like Notre Dame or Georgia or Texas, or, pick your really good team. That's why I didn't think Penn State could win those kind of games. And look, this game came right down to the wire. And Notre Dame was able to make one more play than Penn State, but they were also able to make more, get more explosive plays from guys who maybe you didn't expect them from. Again, like when your wide receivers go without a catch, that's kind of my whole point about Penn State was their wide receivers were not the kind of guys against this kind of opponent and an elite defense on the other side of the ball that their receivers did not match up well. And Notre Dame's secondary completely shut them down. I mean, Aller was trying to find one of those receivers with the game on the line, and it ended up being an interception by Christian Gray. So
absolutely. Yep. I mean, I don't even know what else to say about
no. Yeah. Some people are commenting about my Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt. Mark is asking if it's a celebration or a protest in parting of ways of Mike McCarthy. Let's just say I would not be wearing this if Mike McCarthy, even if it was still, in doubt what his future was going to be. I've been on record, and I think Jesse is a little bit, we'll talk about it more when Jesse's here tomorrow. I think Jesse's a little bit more upset about McCarthy leaving because he texted me today, well, he's gone. You can be a fan now. I was literally, Vince, I was investing time this weekend. If Mike McCarthy was still the head coach, I was trying to decide what team I was going to root for next season. And it pains me to say, like, I came away from, Hard Knocks, the in-season, they did Hard Knocks AFC North. And so they followed, all four teams in the division, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Bengals. And I was debating hard between the Ravens and the Steelers. And the Steelers are like, the Antichrist of my youth, because of losing 2 Super Bowls to them. But I like Mike Tomlin. And like we were talking about last week, I've decided that I kind of like John Harbaugh, and I definitely like Lamar. And so they were in the running if Mike McCarthy was still the head coach. But now I don't have to worry about that. I got a new head coach. Maybe I can even go to a game next year.
Well, but is there going to be anything about like who the new head coach is?
Nothing yet. No buzz. No definite.
But I mean, for you, is there somebody that you would like protest against? Is what I'm saying.
Nobody I would protest against.
Okay.
2 names that I think are really interesting because, anyone who's kind of a free agent out there is in play. Pete Carroll and Steve Sarkisian are two I'd be pretty, I wouldn't mind either one of those guys. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Whether or not, that actually happens, I don't know. I've heard Kingsbury, but I also heard this morning something interesting. Kingsbury is still getting paid, money by the Arizona Cardinals
right
through the end of next season.
Wow.
And so like what I've heard about him is he might not necessarily be in a hurry because it's like you're going to get the extra money. If he were to become a head coach next year, he wouldn't get that extra cash from the Cardinals. So like keep your current salary as an offensive coordinator with Washington and get paid by the Cardinals for 1 more year. Seems like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah, no kidding. To get paid to sit around. Like, sign me up.
Yep. I agree, Stephen. I know that Vince is anti Pete Carroll because of USC. But...
No, I'm not anti Pete Carroll. I think he's a good coach. I would be worried maybe a little bit about his age. He's up there.
The thing with that is like, Jerry Jones is like 80, I think, and Pete Carroll it's either 72 or 73. So yeah, I mean he's up there a little bit, but he's still
73.
He's known as a good culture guy, and all of his Seahawks teams played really physically on both sides of the ball, and that's what I want in the next head coach. That's what ticked me off the most about Mike McCarthy's Cowboys the last few years. They were just way too soft on both sides of the line of scrimmage. That's what I want to see from the next head coach, to bring that mentality that Marcus Freeman's brought. And I'm not saying I want Freeman in Dallas. I want him right here.
Yeah, he doesn't
at Notre Dame
anywhere.
But that's what I need. I need to see a coach who's going to change some culture and get him out of the country club and playing some hard-nosed football on both sides.
I like that.
That's
I would want that as well.
Yeah,
I've lost all faith in the team I root for, so I'm not.
You're not holding out any hope.
Well, any organization that tweets out, "Oh, we just interviewed this guy. We just interviewed like that's so stupid. Like they don't have a clue what they're doing."
That's kind of become the trendy thing, though. Is
so dumb.
You've got to tweet out. You've got to let the world know who you just got done interviewing.
I don't get that at all. Don't worry, their agent will get it out there. Like you don't have to do it.
Decaf.
Oh man, you would definitely be burning your Dallas stuff at that point.
Oh, he says BK. Joe says Carroll's nothing but a rah-rah guy who just relies on stars. I don't think he's much of an X's and O's guy. I mean,
but he doesn't have to be an X's and O's guy. That's what the coordinator's for.
All he really had, he had Marshawn Lynch and he had Russell Wilson. No, obviously Wilson in his prime. They didn't have a lot of stars outside of that. Like they had the Legion of Boom and all that. So I guess they had a little bit of star power on defense, but I don't know. Like the rah-rah thing, you can call it what you want, but between
guys
USC,
like playing for him.
Between USC and Seattle, that's exactly right. Guys like playing for him, and they won a lot of football games. He won national championships and a Super Bowl, and came within a dumb call at the end of the second one, from winning 2 straight Super Bowls. So he wins a lot of games. I'll take guys who win a lot of games.
Right.
Joe, thank you for the super chat. He says McCarthy was nothing but a bad babysitter for the Packers. I got to blow this up. My screen's a little bit small. There we go. Never liked the hire. Sanders for head coach. Enough Cowboys talk. You're right, but people were asking about it because I was wearing the sweatshirt. So.
You don't want Deion Sanders as your head coach either. No. I don't think so. Maybe you do. He's not going to be the head coach in Chicago, so that is not what I would want personally. Because then it's just a show. It's just a show.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll let him go to the Raiders, and if they draft his son or something,
right? You don't need that extra. I mean, it's a circus, is what it is. You don't need that. Look, Colorado needed it because they had nobody watching their games or going to them, and bringing in that sideshow made that happen. Now, he did bring in guys, and they won 9 games, but they weren't an elite team by any stretch. They were better than they were, but they were not elite. But the whole the golden headsets and the the coach prime, I don't want it. It's great for somebody else's team. I wouldn't want that on mine.
Trey, thanks for the super chat. He says, can't wait for this game. Sorry if I missed this, but are there any plans for an Ivy tailgate or get together in Atlanta? I've seen it on the board. Check the Champions Lounge. I know there's a thread about this, so that'll give you the best idea. I haven't heard any update beyond just seeing the thread there on the Champions Lounge. Mike, we're going to talk about the Marcus Freeman Chicago Bears thing in rapid fire, so hold tight with that thought. Kate says, Riley showed tremendous, and thank you for the super chat. Oh, Kale, sorry. Riley showed tremendous poise after those turnovers. Steve helped flip the momentum. Love IB.
Yeah.
Go Irish.
I think that's all.
And I think that's, we had the conversation and we played the, Marcus Freeman peanut butter and jelly. That's really what we should be appreciating Steve Angeli for. Not whether or not they should have ever gone and, got a transfer portal quarterback, and not whether or not he deserves to be the guy next year. For right now, the only conversation is Steve Angeli came off the bench after really not playing that much this year and not playing any high leverage snaps this year. It had been more than a year, the Sun Bowl, maybe I guess a handful here and there, where he had to come in and took 1 snap, 2 snaps against Louisville. But he came in, and now, if Notre Dame wins a championship, Steve Angeli got to play an active part in helping them win a national championship. At the very least, he played an active part in getting them to the national championship game by stepping in when he did. That's to me the only conversation we need to be having about Steve Angeli right now.
Yep, I completely agree, and that's okay. That's an okay conversation to have. He has written his name in the history books of Notre Dame football, and whether they win a national championship on Monday or not, he's part of the reason that they got there. And that's awesome.
Dale says, aren't we talking about the disrespect against Notre Dame helping against Ohio State? You're damn right, Dale. That's what we're going to do right now. We did obviously get a little bit sidetracked, but
disrespect.
That's what happens when you let when the host lets his eyes drift into the backfield and he doesn't focus on.
Don't worry, Dale, bring us back. Dale brought us right back to center. Right here.
So, on that subject, Dale, there is virtually, and I guess fairly justifiably so, but I know there's virtually nobody outside of Notre Dame-dom, Notre Dame, fandom, players, coaches, whatever. There's virtually nobody outside of Notre Dame who thinks that Notre Dame can win this game. They're more than a touchdown underdog, even though the line has moved in their favor a little bit. I saw it move to 7.5, but I mean, let's be honest, that
touchdown.
That's got something to do with, how the money's moving and that kind of stuff. But Ohio State, I think even before they went out and, beat Texas in the semifinal, once they just whipped Oregon in the quarterfinals, they became the overwhelming favorite to win it all, regardless of who their opponent was going to be in this game. And you did hear people talking about, Ohio State, Texas, the de facto national championship and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, Vince, you always hear, teams say nobody believed in us after winning championships. In this case, though, I mean, pretty much nobody believes in Notre Dame. Do you think it could work in Notre Dame's favor in this matchup?
Maybe a little, but I think it's more from a perception standpoint. Marcus Freeman has done a very good job of getting his teams ready for this postseason. I just don't know how much he's going to use the outside noise to help get the guys ready. I don't know.
According to Xavier Watts, he used the press conference, the James
he brought it up.
Press conference. Last week.
He brought it up.
So,
I don't know that was the main factor of motivation, though. I don't know. I mean, it's bulletin board material, I suppose. I mean, these kids aren't idiots. They know who's favored and who's not, and all of that stuff, and that's fine. Look, Ohio State should be favored in this matchup, in my opinion. They should be.
Right.
I have no problem with that. It would be an.
But don't you think that every day in practice, don't you think that kind of helps? Whether Marcus Freeman is, he's used Northern Illinois all year long to motivate him, right? Apparently, he played clips of that. Before the last couple games, he's still going to that.
Yeah,
well,
that's what they did, though. Like that's internal stuff. That's
I know
external. I think that's.
But again, like if you're going to use the Franklin press conference, it seems like this is a layup for you. Like literally nobody believes in you.
But I wonder if he's been doing that all along because nobody believed them against Georgia. Maybe more people believed against Penn State, but not many, right? So I wonder if he's been using that all along. I don't think we know the answer to that. But you're right. It's a layup. I mean, it is absolutely a layup to use it because they're over a touchdown dog in this game. And I don't know that they should be that much of a dog, but I'm okay with them being a dog. They should be not favored in this game.
No, and I agree. And again, like going to what we were talking about with the homerism at the front, I'm not trying to tell you they shouldn't be an underdog because, again, like the reason I broke down the Notre Dame Penn State matchup the way I did last week was because of the body of work that both of those teams presented us. And the way, obviously we should feel about Notre Dame and Ohio State is the body of work that each of those teams has presented us for this matchup. And everything that we've seen right now definitely says, I mean, legit concerns about can Notre Dame, slow that Ohio State offense down. Now, Texas obviously did to some extent. Ohio State deserves to be the favorite. I'm not going to dispute that at all. But, like coaches are always looking to find some kind of advantage. Like, how can we spin this? And I definitely think that, Marcus Freeman will kind of go to his toolkit and use this. And even if he doesn't, the players know it, like you can't tell me it's not going to be brought up at all. What's interesting though about some of the stuff that I've heard, Vince, and I've heard both Notre Dame doesn't match up physically, like in the trenches, nonsense. Which I think is the worst.
That is so overplayed. And how is Notre Dame not proven that they can play in the trenches with anybody? Come on.
Like, okay, if you watched Ohio State last week and you watched the first half, you go, okay, Notre Dame did have some issues. I do think, though, that, again, like the extra rest at Penn State probably was a factor in that. You can talk about flu or whatever, but they came out in the second half. What did they do? They made adjustments, right?
Exactly.
But I've also heard separately that, they can't stop all those weapons that Ohio State has. And again, legit concern, I think. But the bigger thing, Vince, is like listening to some of these people. It's obvious to me who's been watching Notre Dame and who just turned on TV, to watch a game.
Right.
Because like I heard someone say Riley Leonard is not fast.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you watched at all, like if you were watching the Penn State game last week, and all you did was watch that, and you saw Riley Leonard trying to outrun Abdul Carter, to the corner, when they were, on that play where Leonard ends up throwing it away. I mean, Carter's the only guy that we've seen, be able to keep up with Riley Leonard like that, literally all season long, trying to get around the corner. And Abdul Carter, could be the number 1 overall pick. I mean,
Exactly.
He's got elite speed himself. Like,
correct.
Those were 2 really fast guys, in a foot race trying to win the foot race to get to the corner there. To say Riley Leonard is not fast is just insane to me. It's, again, it's like literally have you been watching games at all?
That is so lazy. That is such lazy reporting.
When it's like,
yeah,
Brian, I've seen this thread keep kind of popping up on the Champions Lounge as well. Driscoll is talked about the people who broke down Notre Dame's game against USC and then, said definitively, this is who Notre Dame is. Well, if all you did was watch that game, you're going to have a much different perspective of who Notre Dame is compared to Notre Dame, Georgia, for example, right?
Yep. I listen, I hope a couple of things. Number one, I hope Notre Dame players are hearing it to a degree and they come in with zero pressure and they just go out and ball. Like that's what you want as an underdog, right? Number two, I hope the Ohio State players are also listening because, based on the chat, and I know people in our chat are more involved in listening to what Ohio State people are doing and all of that than I am. But if they're saying that this is their TCU, which is what somebody said, that Notre Dame is Ohio State version of TCU. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if that's what they're thinking coming into this game, awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I
love that.
Yeah, exactly. The question will be how much does Ohio State buy into any of that kind of stuff?
Right.
And yeah, so like, I don't know, like to me, you not just to me, I think it's pretty obvious, who's just going, like these national guys who are breaking this stuff down, like who's watched 1 or 2 games and who's just looking at a stat sheet and reading off a bunch of numbers.
Exactly. 100%.
Because if you've actually watched Riley Leonard, like, that you can't just look at the stat sheet, like if you need me to say it, I'll say it. But like, you can't just look at the stat sheet and get any idea of who Riley Leonard is as a player, and obviously who he is as a leader. And the fact that he's willing to just lay his body on the line and guys follow that, like all of those intangibles beyond just what Riley Leonard's stat line, his passing line looks like, all of that plays into who Riley Leonard is and why this Notre Dame team is playing in the national championship game, because you needed every ounce of every different aspect of Riley Leonard to get to where they are right now. It's not just about what you're seeing on a stat sheet.
Correct. And anybody that has followed Notre Dame in any way, shape, or form knows that. But anybody that's just looking at paper doesn't, and that's where they're going to form their opinion, and that's fine. It's so lazy, and it just shows that anybody can put a microphone in front of their face and have an opinion. Doesn't mean it's right. Myself included. You can disagree with me all you want. Just because I got myself $100 microphone and a platform doesn't mean I'm always right. But I feel like I'm right more than I'm wrong. And people that just look at a stat sheet, you're going to be wrong more than you're right, because you got to actually watch the games and see how the game flows and things like that. This Notre Dame team is not LSU 2019, right? That year, the stat sheet was exactly what you got from them. Just them putting up crazy numbers, just blowing people out, all of those kinds of things, right? So sometimes that works. But for this particular Notre Dame team, that doesn't work, man. And you can look at multiple different avenues for this Notre Dame team as to why the stat sheet doesn't work. Number one, Riley Leonard talked about it. Number two, the rushing yards against Notre Dame's defense. There were plenty of games where they're like, we need to take away the pass. And if they get some yardage on us in the run game, it doesn't really matter. Like, that was a conscious choice by Notre Dame. They go into the Georgia game, they're like, we can't let them run the ball on us 62 yards. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so the stat sheet doesn't always tell you the tale. You actually have to watch the games and know what you're talking about. That's what's frustrating to me. Is like, I'll respect people's opinion. If you think Notre Dame is garbage, give me some good reasons as to why. Don't just read it off of a stat sheet. That's where I'm at. Look, they made it the championship game for a reason.
And it also still feels like, we've talked about this before, like every step of the way, the comments have been, can Notre Dame throw the ball better? Like Notre Dame's got to pass the ball better to win all these games. Well, Riley Leonard, in terms of a, true passing line, 15 of 23, was at 223 that he got, like just from a pure numbers aspect, like that was more production, obviously, than 90 yards against Georgia. But he also threw two bad interceptions, and they still found a way to win because Leonard is a microcosm, I think, of like what this Notre Dame team is.
Agreed.
For one, all the conversation always comes back to the Notre Dame offense and what they are or aren't, and the defensive side is completely disregarded. I mean, and that is since day one, Texas A&M, and the special teams aspect now I don't think is, talked about nearly enough. But, like we've talked about the Marcus Freeman, Dan Campbell comparisons, and I think that they're completely apt. When Campbell did Hard Knocks a couple of years ago, he was up in front. There was like this one scene where he's up in, it's like a team meeting, and he's standing up in front of the team in training camp, and he told them that, he's like, we're going to be a team that takes you out into the deep water, and we're going to tread water as long as it takes to bury you. And so if you look at this Freeman Campbell comparison, that's kind of what Freeman's Irish are. Like, they're going to dictate the terms to you. Like, you're going to have to play on Notre Dame's terms. You're going to have to play Notre Dame's game. Penn State dictated it for a half, but then Notre Dame came out and adjusted. And what happened at the end of the game? They dictated the terms to you. And it all starts with that physicality, down at the line of scrimmage. And, and again, like Riley Leonard is such a big part of dictating that to you as well. Like, everything looks like you should be able to beat this Notre Dame offense because, they don't throw the ball enough. Riley Leonard's not chucking it downfield and doing all this different kind of stuff. And I mean, Notre Dame dictated the terms to Ohio State the last two times that they played. And, look what happened. Ohio State, with all these first-round NFL draft pick wide receivers, they were both close games that came, that went down to the fourth quarter. I can't sit here right now, a week from the game, and tell you definitively that that's going to happen in this matchup, but history tells us that that's how Notre Dame has made Ohio State, in the same head coach and a lot of the same players in the same system, play the last couple of years. So I think that they've at least got a puncher's chance in this game, even though most people, are writing them off, largely because of what the offense they think isn't.
I'm not going to make that judgment call either, because you know why, Sean? Because I haven't watched enough Ohio State film. And so I'm not going to say something out of bounds because I don't have visual evidence after watching film, which I know that's crazy that I'm going to take the time to do that, unlike some other people. But yes, the two times that Ohio State has played Notre Dame, you are absolutely correct. Notre Dame has done a fantastic job of taking away the wide receivers, and not making them a big part of the offense. So they're going to have to do that again. No doubt about it. And that's a tall order. That's a tall task. But Notre Dame has one of the best, if not the best, secondaries in the country. So if anybody's going to do it, Notre Dame has a good shot of doing it, right? Ring the bell for a homer take, I guess. But, I like Notre Dame secondary.
Jesse was in here. He says Notre Dame has a better chance this year compared to last year. Ohio State offense isn't as good, I believe, is what he was saying. He
got immediate pushback by the fact that the offense isn't as good as it was last year.
I mean, they're explosive. They're explosive, and that's what has to scare you, because I mean, in addition to 10 men being on the field at the end of the game, if Travion Henderson doesn't break that big touchdown, then Notre Dame's got the lead at the end of the game anyway. It came down to Ohio State making a big explosive play. And this year's offense, man, like Jeremiah Smith and look at that, that screenplay at the end of the first half that Ohio State hit to Henderson. There's no room for mistakes. Like, you can't give up a couple of those plays and think that you're going to beat Ohio State. That's the formula that they've had to get to where they are through this playoff run.
Right. Yep.
Obviously, Michigan found a way to shut that down.
They're not unbeatable. I mean, that's
Right.
the thing, right? They're not unbeatable. They've been beaten twice, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're not unbeatable. So, Notre Dame just has to play their game, and it'll be a close game at the end, and the better team will win. Like, I don't know what else people want us to say. Oh, well, you know what? Just shut it down, Sean. Notre Dame's going to lose. This does not have any shows for the week. Like, no.
What?
That's not what
You
we're
just
going to
gave
do.
us a view that I don't think we wanted to see that, Vince.
My pillow that I sit on? What?
Was that what that was?
But like what, Notre Dame is one of the last two teams standing. They didn't accidentally get here. You know what I mean? This isn't the BCS era where there's just the computers put two teams together and one doesn't belong. They earned their spot. They're undefeated against the Big Ten this year. They're undefeated against the SEC this year. They have earned their spot on the team, in this game. And so they've got every chance of winning the game. But Ohio State's a really, really good football team. So Notre Dame's going to have to make them not a good football team. Didn't realize that me putting my laptop down would be such a thing. But
Andy
bad.
Saylor said Al Washington's done a great job getting backups ready to play. I mean, he's had to go to the well.
Hey, listen, show me a position group that didn't have to go to a backup. Like, there are none except for the wide receiving core, I suppose. Every other position group has had to go to a backup. So you can insert coach's name here and say they've done a great job getting backups ready.
That's true. Look, people were ready to fire Joe Rudolph at halftime last week.
Right. But he got two backups.
How did it work out in the second half? It worked out pretty good for him. Again, once they changed up what they were going to do,
right,
a little bit, going, more pin and pull, you'd have like the two pullers and, like they just did a much better job. They tweaked a couple things. They were able to make adjustments and it worked out for them. Who's to say that, those other guys might not have looked better if they had been doing more of that to begin with, but they obviously had to do something to keep Abdul Carter off Riley Leonard a little bit, right? Man. Thanks for the super chat. Anthony says 1 week to Notre Dame's championship.
Right.
Mr. 2.0 says the offense is a bit anemic. He says, I think people are forgetting they've had games where they have shown they can actually score points. I mean, look, you expect against more elite teams, and that's where we are right now. You expect it to be tougher to come by. And again, that's a big part of why a lot of people, think that are basically writing Notre Dame off. I don't know if I'd go so far to say that they're anemic, but again, it's like Georgia, Penn State back to back. We knew those were going to be pretty good defenses.
Correct.
And Ohio State's going to be more the same this week. But I don't think that the offense is just going to come to a grinding halt at the same time.
Also true.
So we talk about this disrespect thing. And you know what? I'm going to save this.
Oh, okay.
And do you want me to play it?
Hey, you do you, brother. I was shocked that the person asked this question. So
okay, well, let's just go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Or do you want to save it for rapid fire?
Let's do it rapid fire because it'll be a quick.
Okay.
Quick.
All right. So let me move this so I don't forget it. All right. All right. I moved it on my little sheet here.
Nice.
So we're going to go instead to some comments from Marcus Freeman because he was talking about the health of some of the players in his media Zoom yesterday, and he was asked about Jeremiah Love's comments last week about wanting to play Ohio State as well, and that's actually the one. Actually, I've kind of messed this whole thing up. There it is. This is what happens when we produce our own shows. I guess
you get some of this the same sometimes. Picture too can make it confusing, I suppose.
Yeah, I know, right? So, yeah, so He was asked about Jeremiah Love and the wanting to, the comments that Love made last week about wanting to play Ohio State and using last year's loss to the Buckeyes as motivation. And here's what Freeman said about that.
Need that to motivate you to get ready for this game, then you're not the right person. And that's the reality of it. We don't need motivation to be prepared for this game. We got a chance of playing a national championship game. This isn't about the past. This is about this opportunity we have right in front of us, and we'll continue to focus on this opportunity right in front of us. If there's learning opportunities from other games or previous games, absolutely we're going to use them. Right? If it's going to help us be more prepared for what could happen in this game, we're definitely going to use it, but it isn't for motivation at all.
So what do you think about that, Vince?
I think that's a great answer because he didn't want to throw his player under the bus for calling out Ohio State or what, he didn't want to do that. And I appreciate that. I think that was the right answer. Yeah, I think that was the right answer. Like, look, if you can't get up for this game, if you need external motivation for the national championship game, then probably don't want you on the bus. Like I can dig that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it is the national championship game, so that should be motivation enough. But what does make this a little more interesting is the fact that Notre Dame and Ohio State have played each of the last 2 years, and this is going to be the third straight year, and now they're doing it for the national championship. And forget about, Marcus Freeman and the fact that he played there and all that kind of stuff. That's a nice little, again, like a storyline for people who are covering this from 30,000 feet out. I think at this point, like all of it, like Al Golden had a connection to Penn State last week. Right. Al didn't look like he was shedding any tears when he was out there shoving it down Penn State's throats, for a lot of the second half, So I just, I don't think that is a factor. I get it from Jeremiah Love's perspective because there is history and there's a bad taste left in, guys who were around here last year from the way that thing ended last year in a game that they obviously felt like they should have won. So I get it. But like you said, I get Marcus Freeman having, this kind of perspective because that's the kind of perspective he's got to have as the head coach.
Yep, absolutely. And he, like I said, he wanted to be careful not to say something negative about Jay Love and because Jeremiah Love's just excited about this game. He wants the best. Yeah. And I don't have a problem with that. Just keep it to yourself.
And remember, he said we won Ohio State before Ohio State
the game
even played Texas. So it was right after Notre Dame's win last Thursday. Okay, so Freeman also updated the health of some of the players, starting with Anthony Knapp and Rocco Spindler from the offensive line.
Knapp will miss this game. He had a high ankle sprain and won't be able to make it back. But we expect Rocco to be able to, we'll see how he progresses. We could practice, but, I know he'll give everything he has into making sure he's prepared. As far as the starting lineup, we'll do what's best for our program, and we got to figure that out. We have a week of preparation to make sure we get the right guys to start this game, and we'll see what that is here in the next couple of days.
It's so interesting. He wasn't going to divulge very much. And, there was a question where he was asked about Jagasaw, but he's really, the answer was more just about, he's, put in a lot of work and, all that.
He played in the last game more than what the future is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no real insight into anything that they might do. So what do you think they end up doing with the offensive line, Vince? Do you think there's a chance Jagasaw moves out to left tackle?
Absolutely, there's a chance. I would say there's a reason he had every opportunity right there to be like, hey, Tosh Baker's our left tackle in this game because Knapp is out. Next man up, let's go.
Yeah.
Every opportunity to say that, and he didn't. Now, that doesn't mean that Tosh Baker isn't going to be the starting left tackle because you're not sure if Rocco's a go. He thinks he will be. Are they going to move Jagasaw outside? He didn't paint himself into a corner, which is smart because I think they want to get Jagasaw on the field. That's my opinion of what he said. I think that's what they want to do, and they're not exactly sure at what position that's going to be, but they want to get him on the field. So if I was a betting man and this was some sort of bet, I would say Jagasaw starts at left tackle and Rocco starts at right guard. That's what I think it's going to end up being.
I'm kind of leaning that direction as well. And I think that would be nothing but good for Notre Dame.
I completely agree with that too.
I mean, like in a perfect world, Jagasaw would play both left tackle and right guard, probably. But
they could clone him.
And that's not a knock on Spindler, but I'm just saying,
look, Spindler's on one leg. We talked about
right
this,
now.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the issue. He's having trouble anchoring, and when you're an offensive lineman, you need to be able to anchor and pass block. He can't anchor on his right ankle right now, or at least not well. So that's the problem. And a healthy player at that position is a better player at that position. I think that an 80% Rocco is still better than some other options right now. So I still think it's going to be Rocco at right guard.
I mean, it was telling just the fact that Jagasaw, Jagasaw, Joe says, will ESPN get his name right?
No. Well, they
Very
might this
interesting
time.
Pronunciation that Sean
McDonough
had.
Clearly didn't go over who the backup offensive linemen were. And they've done, that was their third Notre Dame game.
Third straight Notre Dame game. Yep.
So that was a little disturbing from a preparation standpoint. But they really had no idea how to say his name, which I thought was very interesting. They also first early on didn't know that he was the starting left tackle before he got hurt. I think that little nugget was whispered in their ear.
Well, he was never the starting left tackle. I mean, he started training camp. So
I mean, he was penciled in as the starting left tackle.
Right.
That was the talk.
That would be a pretty deep nugget, though, for like someone on a national TV broadcast to know that. So, I mean, if it's not in the notes, you know what I mean? Like,
fair. I don't know if I haven't read the notes. I don't read the notes, so I don't know. But you're right.
I mean, it would be one thing if he had actually started a game and then he was the starting left tackle, but he was injured before the first week of training camp was done. So, like, I can't.
He was the starting left tackle. He was the starting left tackle in the bowl game, though.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, true.
Hey, it's the last time Steve Angeli started too, and he's an all-star. So that's what I've been told. It's a Hall of Famer.
Easy,
Sorry.
big fella.
Sorry.
Easy. Tracy wants to know if I bought Jesse a ticket to the game. We've got so many logistics on this game that we're trying to get worked out. I don't even know where to go. The short answer to that question is no.
Yeah.
Not at this point.
I'm bringing my kid to the game. He also is ticketless.
Assuming you get there.
I'm not spending $2,000 or $1,500 or even $1,000 on my 17-year-old kid to go into this game. So it's going to be
crowdsource it. Go fund me.
Well, that's if anybody wants to throw some money my way.
Yeah,
you go ahead and message me.
Not in the form of a super chat. We'll give you our
not in the form of a super chat. But if you want to donate some money for my kid to be able to go to this game. My Twitter handle is @Coach D'Addario. We can get it all the logistics figured out. But he told me the other day, he goes, Dad, I just want to be down there in the atmosphere. And I said, hey, let's roll. So we'll see how it goes.
Archer says if anyone has a spare ticket, he'll meet you there.
You know what? Dylan and Archer can sit together. If Archer, you find a pair, Dylan will meet you down there and it'll be you guys will have a great time together. It's more than that, brother.
What is the percentage that of
like
the super
40.
chats that go? Is it 40% that go to YouTube?
It's a big number. It's a big number.
Yeah.
What we need to do is we need to get a little Venmo.
I know we need a Venmo button is what we need.
What do they call those things? Like where you scan them, in the corner, a
QR code. Yeah.
Yes. We need to get one of those in the corner, like right here, and then people can Venmo, and then we'll get a good
idea, like up here on the screen.
Yeah, and then instead of a super chat, we get Venmos with the question attached, and we can have that pulled up on our computer, and then we can ask those questions. That's what I think we should do.
Run that up the flagpole. You know,
write that one down for the boss.
Yeah, making money.
DK. Vince, you would let your son mingle with a Buckeye. Disgraceful. Absolutely, I would let him mingle because I know he would also talk trash. So
he's a D'Addario after all.
I mean, I'm just saying. It's actually a good call, USMA 87. See if Dylan can get credentials from the school paper. That's actually something to think about. The guy who's in charge of the Penn high school media is at every Notre Dame home game in the press box.
True.
So they have his
stringing for the AP. So.
You know what I'm saying? So is that what he does?
Yeah.
Is that why he's up there? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
So I don't think in that case, because like there would be probably like a local, like the AP will basically have an Atlanta-based guy.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like
he for sure on that one.
The AP guy from here wouldn't travel.
Not saying I'm not going to reach out to our guy though. I'm trying all avenues, turning over all rocks.
I don't blame you. All
right, now I'm ready.
Are you ready for rapid fire?
Yes, I am. Let's go.
Here we go. So Ohio State head coach Ryan Day was disrespected before the regular season meeting with Notre Dame and Ohio State last year at Notre Dame Stadium. There were questions about Ohio State's physicality, you might remember, going into that game. And, that was brought up by one Lou Holtz. So Ryan Day was asked about that physicality thing from last year. And Lou Holtz is going to come up here.
I've tremendous amount of respect for Notre Dame and certainly what Marcus has done there. I think they're a gritty group. They're a tough group. They're a great program. And, last 2 years it's been a battle playing against them. And we know it's going to be the same way. Every year is a different group of guys in a different situation. This is a different situation. It'll be the same way. But no, I mean, every game, you're either trying to prove somebody right or prove somebody wrong. It doesn't matter, when it is. And it'll be the same thing in this game here.
Speaking of that, I'm just curious. Have you and Lou Holtz ever talked since then? Have you, either patching things up or comment between you?
No.
I mean, he asked it. Fair game, I guess. But
he asked it. And I did that exact same expression live when I heard that question get asked. Like, well, really? That is such a question that there are certain people on the beat, the Notre Dame beat, would ask that question. And I'm sure I'm surprised they got beat to the punch by the whole Ohio State person.
I mean, no one's surprised, right? Like, do you want Lou Holtz to kind of rear his head and start stirring things up again this week? Or would you rather Lou just kind of, stay kind of behind the scenes a little bit more before this one? Though, like as big a thing as that became last year.
Lou Holtz can say whatever the heck he wants, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I don't care.
I'm with Father David. Stay home, Lou.
Oh, he says it from home. Don't worry.
No, stay away from the cameras. Stay away from the microphones. I just think that, and maybe Marcus Freeman has put in that call. Coach, I love you, but let's not this week, right? Let's not create anything extra.
Oh, it's great
for Ohio State going.
Lou Holtz still has the best line ever of all Notre Dame football coaches ever. Save Jimmy Johnson's ass for me. Like, that's still the best quote ever by Lou Holtz, by any coach. Jimmy
didn't even know about it until after the game. So.
Love it. Love it. So he can, I think they should, I think he's probably in a wheelchair now. You roll him into the locker room, and then he gives, you can save Ryan Day's ass for me. Like, that's what I want. And I want that to be on the documentary. That's what I want.
Locker room motivational stuff.
Yes.
No problem with that.
Okay. So you're okay with that.
But nothing, no bulletin board stuff, basically, is what I'm saying. No bulletin board stuff.
Okay.
I'm looking. I had seen the Malik Zaire. People are bringing up Malik Zaire's.
Yeah, he's not a big fan of Will Howard, and I get it. I don't think Will Howard's all that great either, but he's played really well in the playoff. He has. He's played pretty well in the playoff, I think.
He has.
He's done what he needed to do in the playoff, so he's no slouch.
I've seen the tweet, but I can't remember exactly what he said.
It was. So. I think he said something along the lines of Will Howard is the worst Ohio State quarterback in like 15 years. Or something along those lines. But is he? I mean, I know Ohio State fans hate Kyle McCord. I get it. So it would be a toss-up between those two for me. But, like, you think about the great quarterbacks that kind of came through Ohio State over the last decade and a half. He's not really going out on a limb.
The thing with he's got what McCord had. He's got NFL talent around
Correct.
him, like skill guys, wide receivers, running back. Like that's what it is. And so, like, you know, I don't disagree. Jesse was popping in. Will Howard's not better than Kyle McCord, and I've kind of said that as well. I'm surprised our old friend Bucknuts hasn't popped in today. Maybe he's waiting until later in the week to start stirring the pot. I don't know, but
Johnny S wants us to talk about Kirk Herbstreit as an Ohio State quarterback. I don't remember Kirk Herbstreit as an Ohio State quarterback, and that was way more than a decade and a half ago.
I mean, most people remember Herbstreit as an analyst. Like the guy's literally been on game day for 30 years, and he's not that old. So, like, think about what that meant for his career. You know,
I'll tell you what, he ages very well. I will give him that. He does not look his age.
No,
I will say that, and I don't know what that is.
Let him
whatever it is.
I'm guessing. I don't know.
He's 55. He doesn't look 55. I mean, I give him credit.
He's held up well.
He really has, especially in the public eye and all of that.
Yeah.
I give him credit for that.
So Marcus Freeman updated the health of Jeremiah Love and Bo Collins during his Zoom Sunday as well.
Jay Love is good to go. Jay Love will be full go. And Bo's still healing from he has calf strain. And so he'll work back into practice here in the next couple of days. But I hope that as long as he progresses, he'll be good to go for the game. But we got to make sure that he progresses as we go through this week.
2 questions for you, starting with this one. Can the Irish beat Ohio State without Jeremiah Love?
Be really hard. It'd be really hard. I mean,
thinking.
even as just a threat to get the football, that he needs to be in the game. You know what I mean? I don't even need 100%. I want 100% Jeremiah Love, but even
is 90% good enough?
Yes.
Like where's
90%?
Where does our scale slide to on how good? You know what percentage he has
80
to be at?
80 is mine because you know he doesn't break off a 98-yard run, but there's plenty of debate out there, and I'm with them about his 2-yard touchdown run was more dynamic than his 98-yard run.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm thinking. Like you need that on the field. You need that threat and just that gumption that he had for a run like that, just to get you a couple of tough yards. Jesse slides it all the way down to 70%. I think 80 is where I'm at though too.
And 80% Jeremiah Love can do that at the goal line. I don't know that he's, like I said, I don't know that he's breaking off a big run, but he can do that. And that's what I just need his presence. I need his presence on the field. That's what I need. Yeah. And what is it? Michael said Aeneas Williams. Yeah. Look, he stepped up in the Orange Bowl. Like his role was bigger in the Orange Bowl than it's been all season. Even
and that's the thing. Aeneas Williams now shows up in the Ohio State scouting report more than it showed up in the Penn State scouting report. You only had a handful of plays that Aeneas Williams, you know, that Penn State could really look at. And they, you know, like they split Aeneas Williams out as a wide receiver on that play.
That's a matchup problem.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they got the matchup with the linebacker. And that's part of what, you know, again, great throw, maybe even greater catch. But the fact that he was matched up against the linebacker definitely helped Williams out. And so Ohio State is going to look at Aeneas Williams a little bit differently now than Penn State was looking at him last week because of that play. You know, so it's like, I'm not doubting that Aeneas Williams can still go out there and contribute and give Notre Dame something. But obviously the threat of Jeremiah Love, like you really need that on the field as much as possible.
100%. I'm just so happy right now that he's a sophomore. That's where I'm at. I feel like it's the year that like Michael Mayer was a sophomore. He's like, yeah, I know he's coming back for at least one more year. Like that's where I'm at with Jay Love. It's like, oh, he's a sophomore. Can't go anywhere.
Yep. Now, Williams can be a playmaker, but Jeremiah Love is a playmaker. And that's why you need as much Jeremiah Love on the field, especially against a defense like this. You know, it's now the best defense that Notre Dame will see this season.
Right.
So.
Oh yeah. And you know what? It's the best defense that Ohio State's going to see too. So.
Andre says if Jesse's in the chat, tell him to jump on. Maybe he's naked and doesn't want to jump on.
Whoa.
I don't know what he's got going on over there. He's
visual
definitely
I
going to be
needed.
here for. He's definitely going to be here for tomorrow's shows. We're going to jump deeper into some of the Ohio State stuff with Jesse and his whiteboard. You know, he's already been told about that. So my other question, he said Bo Collins has a calf strain. Marcus Freeman did. Is there a Notre Dame wide receiver who's irreplaceable on this team at this point?
Salty's going to be mad, but the answer is no.
I agree.
Although, you know, devil's advocate, right? Greathouse is stepping up when he needs to. Had a big game in the Orange Bowl, obviously. I think Faison is capable of that kind of a game. I think Bo Collins is actually capable of a game like that. So, I mean, I think there's capabilities there, but I think one can step up for the other one if somebody gets hurt. Like there's nobody that's irreplaceable right now. There's nobody that I would be like, well, season's over. You know, if that guy can't go, you know, I want them all to be healthy. I want all the weapons. But yeah, I don't know that anybody has distanced themselves at this point as somebody that you can't win without.
That's exactly it. Because look, for a couple of games, it was looking like, ooh, Jordan Faison is the go-to guy now. And Penn State, you know, again, because of what he showed for a couple of games, Penn State defended him differently and had some success limiting him that, you know, like Indiana and to some extent Georgia wasn't able to. And Jaden Greathouse was able to step up and make some plays. And I think, you know, like those two, Chris Mitchell, Bo Collins, like you said, even Jaden Harrison to some extent. I think all of those guys are capable of being able to step in and give Notre Dame a big game. So I absolutely don't think that any of them are irreplaceable because, you know, let's just look at the fact that was game 14, or was it 15? I guess that was game 15. And that's the first 100-yard game that Notre Dame has had since Faison Sun Bowl last year. So, like, I don't think any of them are irreplaceable, but I do think that any of them are fully capable of having games like Faison and Greathouse have had in the last few weeks.
Right. There's a lot of capability there, right? We saw Mitchell Evans kind of jump out a little bit in the Orange Bowl. Hopefully that can continue, obviously. Look, there's a lot of look, that's the one thing about this offense. They don't necessarily have any stars on the outside, but there's a lot of guys that can make plays as well. So you don't really know who to cover, who to bracket, you know, who to focus on, because they can all kind of do it. You know what I mean? They're all like 6.5, you know, 7s. You know, they're all like right there. There's no 9s or 10s. Like Ohio State has 9s and 10s on offense. And so, you know, that's the tricky part there. Notre Dame's got some guys too, but they're not as good. But there's a lot of those guys.
Michael says, why can't Williams line up at fullback? Call me crazy. Well, because
he's not a fullback.
Well, he's not a fullback. Fullback and running, you know, halfback are two different positions. And Notre Dame, when have you seen them use a fullback? You know, like they've done some 21 personnel. They did that last week and then even the week before against Georgia, and maybe we see more of that. So, like, you could see him on the field potentially at the same time as either Price or Love, but it wouldn't be at fullback.
Yeah, I don't. Look, Notre Dame, Mike Denbrock doesn't run with a fullback, and he's not going to.
Right.
But guess what? You get the same action having Jeremiah Love lead block for Riley Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
Same idea. So you don't need to line up with a fullback. You got the same amount of guys blocking when you run Riley Leonard when you have your running back blocking for him. So yeah, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, as they say when it comes to football. It's all a numbers game.
Marcus Freeman also talked about the impact of the flu on his team from last week and kind of where they are with that, if it could be a factor this week.
Flu, I mean, I'm sure every school, Ohio State's probably dealing with it too. Like, it's a virus that has really, I think probably over half of our team has gotten it already. So I don't think it will have an impact on this week's game.
So do you have any concern about the flu for the Irish coming up this week, Vince?
Nope. Didn't have a concern last week, and I don't have a concern this week. That's where I'm at. I mean, I know there were a couple of guys that were hurting from the flu, but it was like a couple of walk-on guys. Like, that wasn't I'm not saying it's fake news because I'm not going to go that far because there were some guys that were dealing with it at that time, but it wasn't the story it was made out to be.
But I guess the only thing is like, well, if half the guys have had it, then there's another half who could get it. And like you said, it was mostly reserves last week. So who's to say, like you would think that hopefully like if they're going to have it, maybe, it runs its course this week. And then by next week, you're okay. You just don't know with that kind of stuff.
And I do want to address ND Sailor here. He goes, why on earth don't they give these guys flu vaccines? The flu. Do you guys understand how flu shots work? Like the flu shot is for the most common strain of flu that is out there this year. It is not for every flu strain. So just getting the flu shot does not make you Superman against the flu. That's not how it works.
Yeah. Not to mention we get into, vaccine questions, which not everyone's for,
Also
it's
true.
Like, we don't have to start getting into all that kind of stuff.
Right. So
this ain't the military where you don't have a choice, where you line up
Right.
and they just give you the gun and, they literally inject like 10 different
Correct.
things into your body at one time. So.
But we're not saying they didn't have it, ND Sailor. You can still get the flu with the flu shot. Nobody said they didn't have the flu
because
shot.
it could be a different strain than what you just got vaccinated for.
Come on, man. There we go. So I knew saying something like that was going to start.
There we go. See, that's all it took. That's all it took. Don't take those shots.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
So Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network has reported that the Chicago Bears want to interview Marcus Freeman for their coaching vacancy. Don't believe me? Here he is.
Bears continue their exhaustive search for their next head coach. I am told the team wants to interview Notre Dame's Marcus Freeman for the job. Freeman is in the midst of a magical run with the Fighting Irish to the national championship game. Obviously unlikely that he would entertain NFL overtures prior to that game a week from tomorrow against Ohio State. But the Bears have done extensive research for months on Marcus Freeman. He's only 39 years old. Would not be a shock if at some point he at least considers going to the NFL. Freeman was actually a fifth-round pick by the Bears back in 2009 as a linebacker. Got released in the final cuts, never played in an NFL game. But if the Bears get their way, Rich, perhaps Marcus Freeman could make another visit to Hallis Hall sometime in the coming week.
So there you go. Tom Pelissero on the NFL Network talking about the Chicago Bears' interest in Marcus Freeman. Scale of 1 to 10, what chances do you give that Freeman would actually interview with the Bears?
Negative 7,500. Like, it's not going to happen. He's not interviewing with the Bears.
Oh, boy.
He's not Brian Kelly.
Vince being definitive. Here we go.
That's right. It's not going to happen. He just signed an extension at Notre Dame. He has the team in the national championship game. He's not going to interview with the Bears. It's not happening. Like it's hilarious to me. This guy's reporting. He's like, well, the Bears have this interest. I had an interest in Cindy Crawford when I was a single guy, but doesn't mean she's coming over to go on a date with me. Like, there has to be mutual interest. And I don't think there was mutual interest here in this case.
But he's not saying that Marcus Freeman is taking the job. He's telling you about the interest that the Bears have in him.
I get it. That's a one-sided relationship.
Right. And that's why I phrased the question the way I did. Do you think Marcus Freeman would actually interview? And I do not, based on the fact that, this Bears stuff came up at the end of November.
Right.
Before Marcus Freeman signed his contract extension and all the leverage stuff that we talked about, like that, the fact that Marcus Freeman signed that, to me, like that should tell us all about the commit. And Freeman, I know he's had at least a little bit of a chance to talk about it. Like that tells you you where Marcus Freeman's head is at.
That's a great point, because the Bears stuff was out there before he signed the extension.
Right.
And if he was interested, he would have said, hey, guys, let's wait till after the season to sign this extension.
Exactly.
And that would have been code for I'm going to go interview for this Bears job. That's a great point. That much more sound logic than what I had. So I appreciate it.
I do what I can. What I can.
Appreciate that.
But that's, and again, like when they signed that, there was still a lot of things going on. Ryan Day was, according to a lot of people, on the hot seat if he didn't get to it,
that's right.
At least where he is. right now. And they're, like that was a possibility. The Bears were a possibility. All these things, but within maybe 10 days, they got a deal done and they announced it. Pete Bavacqua has talked about it. They got it done. They all wanted to get it done. Like Marcus Freeman could have rolled the dice and said, hey, let's wait and see. Pete Bavacqua could have rolled the dice and said, hey, prove something to me in this playoff. Prove to me, that you can actually win some big games. And that could have changed the whole complexion. And then maybe Marcus Freeman does go out and interview, again, to like drive his price up with Notre Dame to make Notre Dame show him the love. But I think that we've seen where Marcus Freeman's head is in this whole thing. And I'm with you. Like I put it, like you put it at -75. I would just put it at, 0 to maybe 1, leaving a little bit of wiggle room out there. But I don't see it happening. I don't think Marcus, like the kind of person that Marcus Freeman is, I don't think he signs a deal on a contract extension with Notre Dame and then goes back and starts dabbling with an interview with the Chicago Bears.
And a few people made a point in the chat also. The Notre Dame job is better than the Bears job. That I don't
right
think
now it absolutely is. Yeah.
I don't think that's a career trajectory like this. Like, yes, the NFL is above college. I get that. I don't think the Bears are above Notre Dame. I don't. And I think he'd be taking a step backwards in his career, not a step forwards. Because if he wins let's say if he wins the national championship, he's gonna be able to write his ticket as the Notre Dame head coach for a very, very long time. And that's not the NFL is what have you done for me lately? Now, college is trending that way. I get that. But as well as I do, if he can somehow find a way to win this game on Monday, I mean, they're gonna start looking at pictures for the statue for after he retires. You know what I mean? Like this is you will be forever a Notre Dame man. He's not like I just don't see that happening. I just don't.
No, and I mean the biggest, like you said, right now Notre Dame is getting ready to play in a national championship game. The Chicago Bears are still trying to figure out what they are as an organization. They've got a lot of issues to figure out. So absolutely, right now the Notre Dame job is better. I mean, still the bigger picture question is, does Marcus Freeman or anyone else, Steve Sarkisian, like we were talking about with the Cowboys potentially earlier, any of these guys, like, do you want to be an NFL head coach? Do you want to be a college head coach? And Freeman has talked about that. Like, he likes working with young people, like he gets to work with in college. And it's a completely different kind of relationship that you have with college players compared to NFL players. Because even if college guys are getting paid now, like it is a pure job. It is a career, and it's just much more transactional once you get to the NFL level compared to, being here coaching college guys. So it's a completely different thing. And that's the biggest question. Does Marcus Freeman want to be a college coach or an NFL head coach? And the words out of his mouth is, have been just within the last month that he wants to be a college coach. So maybe it makes sense for him a few more years down the road. But for right now, I don't
he's put way too much into this at Notre Dame to want to walk away from it at this point. I mean, I don't, there is that too, right? He's put a lot of sweat equity and time into what Notre Dame is. I mean, he's already proven that you can win at Notre Dame, right? He wants to take it the whole way. And the cupboard is full, right? It's not like a situation where, the entire team's graduating. This is a great time to get out. That is not the case in any way, shape, or form. That right now they're overachieving because everybody was pointing towards 25 and 26, not 24. So they're overachieving right now, in my opinion. And so this is not the time to get off this train at all. Even if you lose this game on Monday, this is not the time. Like Notre Dame stock, you want to buy it. It's going up. It's not the time to jump ship. And I think he's smart enough to see that.
Ray asked earlier if Notre Dame can block Freeman from interviewing with NFL teams. I don't believe so unless they have any specific wording in their contract that would say something like that. But I would doubt it because it is still,
Which we'll never know because
it's a different school. Yeah, exactly.
And we'll never see the contract. We shouldn't anyway.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of this stuff going around this weekend, Vince. 2 teams that wouldn't have made it into the 4-team college football playoff national championship game are playing for the championship this year. And a lot of people are saying that diminishes the regular season. Do you buy or sell that?
Oh, it's a huge sell. It does not diminish the regular season in any way. It makes it more exciting down the stretch. 100%. 100%. I mean, Notre Dame lost their second game of the season back in September. And so what you're saying is you want their season to be over at that point? No, now you're in the playoff at this point because you got to win every game from now until the end of the season in order to make the playoff. And I'm okay with that because it makes every game do or die. I completely disagree with the fact that it makes the regular season diminished. Completely disagree. It makes it more heightened, especially the second half of the season. It heightens it up even more.
Right. So, I mean, they expanded the playoff. What did you think was going to happen? That it was just going to be like straight chalk? Like, if you're going to do that, why did you even expand it? Like, to me, the regular season has had even more meaning this year because of the fact that the playoff has been expanded. For one, like if you only wanted, the top 4 teams to make it into the national championship game, just keep the format at 4. But you got an expanded playoff. More teams had a chance to be involved. And it also means, that by expanding it, there's a greater chance that you're not just going to have one of the top 4 teams making it in. The expanded playoff, though, like when you think about the month of November, it only magnified and intensified what the meaning of the meaning of those regular season games, because every week in November, there were at least 10 games every weekend that impacted who was ultimately going to make it into the 12-team field. Like, look at the Big 12. Every game that Arizona State, Colorado, BYU, and Iowa State played for that entire month had impact on the playoff. And like, you were paying attention to those games. They actually had meaning rather than if it would have only been a 4-team field, like you wouldn't have cared about any of those games. None of those teams were going to make it to the playoff. Look at the ACC. Pittsburgh still had a factor, was a factor in November. SMU was obviously a factor. Clemson, Miami, all of their games actually meant something. And even like in the Big Ten, where you ultimately ended up getting all these teams in, again, like all those games meant something in the month of November. That loss that Michigan, that Ohio State had to Michigan, like some people say, well, that nullifies the meaning of the regular season. Well, if Michigan doesn't win, the entire seeding of this 12-team format looks completely different. And there's, maybe a pretty good chance that we've got 2 different teams, in the championship game right now. So to me, this whole thing only made the regular season more meaningful because we were so much more interested and engaged in all of these games throughout the entire month of November than they would have just been run-of-the-mill, ordinary college football playoff games that most people didn't care about if we only had a 4-team format.
Completely agree. It heightened the regular season for me, especially at the end. Absolutely heightened it.
Yep, exactly. So college football scheduled the semifinals and the national championship around the NFL's wild card weekend, which of course was this past weekend. So you had obviously the 2 semifinal games for college football. The Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl were last Thursday and Friday before wild card weekend. And now the national championship game, of course, is on the 20th, which is going to be after the divisional round. So like college football completely avoiding the NFL in these playoff weekends. Do you buy or sell keeping college football's format this way going forward, or should they try to just, play on Saturdays and go head to head with the NFL playoffs?
That's so tough because here's what I know. I know the NFL, every year they put out like most watched TV programs, and it's always a boatload of NFL games.
Like 90 of the top 100
or whatever
games.
it is. Yes, they're all NFL games. And so I think you're cutting off your nose to spite your face if you put college football games up against the NFL.
I do too.
Because I think given the option, people are going to watch the NFL, especially playoff NFL. Okay. Regular season you can do because that's what they did for the home games, right?
Right.
Some of those games don't, like.
But even then, the ratings for those for the college games got smashed because there were NFL games going on at the same time.
Right. So I understand why they put some games up against the NFL that weekend, but now you're talking about playoff NFL football. I don't like the fact that I had to watch Notre Dame on a Thursday night. I don't. I don't think it was great ratings wise overall. I saw some of those numbers. It wasn't fantastic, and it's because it was a Thursday night. But I don't. I think.
But I also think it would have
off.
been even worse if you were
Yes.
trying to go head to head with the NFL.
Yes.
You know, with NFL playoffs, because
Completely
all of those games are easily, once
Right.
the ratings come out, gonna get over 20 million viewers. You know, with the exception of maybe the Amazon game, just because it was streamed.
Because it's on stream,
You know?
yeah. But no, I just think you're going up against a giant. Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah. And the other thing is, you know, again, this is a new format, so we're all kind of getting used to it. So like even the ratings, like for the Thursday, Friday games, maybe within a year or two, once people are used to this format and kind of when the games are, they get a little bit better. But, you know, like, it's like I saw someone tweeting about the fact that, well, you know, I think it was like last year's Michigan-Alabama game got this great rating for the semifinal, but Notre Dame, Penn State was only this number, and it was like maybe 10 million, you know, fewer or something like that. Well, last year's semifinals were played on New Year's Day when everybody's off work and everybody's
Right.
used to watching football. So that's a lot different
Oh yeah,
than when you're doing it like
every few years.
on January 9th and 10th on a Thursday
Yeah,
and Friday
exactly.
night, you know, because
Yeah.
again, people have to get used to it still. So,
Yeah.
and I do like this from the semifinals to the championship, you know, how they're going to be able to, like, I like the fact that there's 10 days and not just a week. Cause like, think about the Super Bowl, like after the
Yeah.
conference championship games, they get 2 weeks between the conference championships and the Super Bowl. Like, so there's extra time. And, you know, these teams have been traveling now for a couple of weeks, and there's the physical toll that it takes, you know, and
Sure.
the whole thing. So I like the fact that they've got 10 days and even, I guess, 11. Is it 11 for Notre Dame? You know, like, I like the
11,
fact that
yeah.
there's extra time and not just, you know, boom, a week, go into the next game for the national championship. I think it
Agreed.
makes sense.
Completely agree with that, especially at this point in the season. 15, 16 games, you need a little extra time, and that's okay, you know? So, you might be able to tweak the schedule here and there depending on the way the calendar falls. You know what I mean? Moving forward. Because, you know, they're always going to play the semifinal games on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So, like, what days of the week are those going to fall on? That might
Right.
affect whether the games
And then
are
how you
Thursday,
have
Friday,
to adjust the next
Monday,
week. Yeah.
Tuesday, you know, whatever the case may be. That's just going to be a calendar thing. But going up against the NFL, you're automatically going to lose. And
Yeah.
there's no point in that. There's no point.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And the NFL is not going to budge. I mean, look at the fact that they
Not a
schedule
chance.
those games, you know, that first weekend of the college football playoffs. Brian wants to know if there's any advantage for Notre Dame already having played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Remember, they played Georgia Tech there back in October.
No, not really. I mean, they'll know their way around. They may not be in the same locker room because they're the home team. So maybe they're going to be someplace else. Yeah, you know, who knows? But I mean, I don't think it's an advantage. I don't.
I don't
What do you
either.
think? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just a stadium is a stadium, you know, for the most part. You know, it's like there's maybe like in basketball, it's a little bit different, I think, because of the fact that, you know, like different shooting backdrops and stuff like that. But I don't think, you know, unless you were playing in AT&T Stadium in Arlington and you've got the sun coming in Jerry's window there in the west, you know. But otherwise, I don't think that there's a lot of difference one way or another. Michael wants to know, would you rather be Brian Kelly or James Franklin?
James Franklin, because James Franklin was playing a month after Brian Kelly was. So
That's exactly right.
yeah.
That's it. You're in the playoffs. And I
Right.
saw someone on our Champions Lounge posted an article that some guy from down in the Bayou wrote.
no.
And I didn't click on it
Did
because
they really?
some people were kind of, you know, giving the gist, but you know, they were basically trying to say, well, you know, most of this team that that Marcus Freeman's got are Brian Kelly's guys, all these guys on the defensive line.
Oh my
and
God.
it's like,
No, they're not.
No.
There's not a single senior, not a single senior on the offensive line right now.
No. Did I say defensive line is actually what I meant to say. But, like Howard Cross, Riley Mills, obviously.
There's
those
guys.
Okay, Jordan Botello was injured. Jack Kaiser, obviously, was a Kelly guy. Xavier Watts was a Kelly guy. But otherwise, virtually
he was a Kelly guy, but Freeman was the defensive coordinator.
Right.
So was he a Kelly guy or was he a Marcus Freeman defensive coordinator guy?
Who are you talking about?
Watts. Isn't he in his 4th year? Or is he in his 5th year?
I believe it's his 5th.
Okay.
I'd have to double check that. You want me to check it real quick?
See, now I'm messing with you. He's a graduate student. Okay, so maybe it's his 5th year.
That's what I thought.
Senior year of eligibility. Okay. So I'll give you that. But it's a handful. There's a handful of guys on this team.
And even then, when Kelly was here, obviously, they were trying to play him at wide receiver when he started.
Right, exactly. So, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, he's turned into a fully formed All-American safety in the last 2 years.
Under Freeman and Golden.
Yeah. And,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I will give somebody who's making that argument, I will give you the handful of players. And I'm serious, like, I think it's actually a handful. There's not more than about 5 guys that are contributing to this team that were Kelly guys.
But look at the fact that look at the freshmen who have given them significant playing time.
Correct.
This season, and the sophomores who have given them significant playing time.
Look, Archer coming to the defense here. I love this. He says BD tweeted about it. I think he said 16 of the 22 starters never even played for BK.
There you go.
There, I mean, so 4, 6. So 6 guys were actually on the team when Kelly was there. But that doesn't mean that they were really coached by Kelly because they were probably freshmen at the time. So yeah, come on now.
So my answer, of course, is James Franklin. He won 2 college football playoff games and got to the semifinals. And BK is still sitting at home trying to get it figured out. USMA 87 wants to know if Hannah Hidalgo is going to play this week. She missed a game for the first time in her career yesterday.
Yeah.
When Notre Dame went out to Clemson and won 67-58. It was significantly closer. Thank you very much, Matt. He says, I'm definitely not a homer. See?
Guess that means I am.
My guy, Matt, backing me up on the whole homer conversation. He jumped in here late. So.
I'll wear it. I own it.
He might be in a time warp right now. If I had to get, I'm not basing this on any information I'm given or anything else, but just watching Hidalgo, she was in a walking boot, like for the trip down there. And she had it looked like from where I was sitting, and I don't know if you were listening to any of the broadcast, Vince, but I was sitting up. I was
really?
Up in the Raptors up at Clemson. Yeah, they put you up at Clemson. It is the farthest away broadcast position that I have in the ACC.
No kidding.
Go to Clemson. It is up there, so I'm not anywhere close to the court. But
she had the brace that goes over your shoe.
That's what I was saying. It looked like the Mike Bean Takeo brace that she had on her, and I forgot to ask anybody afterwards. But based on everything, I think that one, they sat her just precautionary. She turned her ankle against Wake Forest last Thursday. They wanted to make sure it wasn't going to turn into anything more serious than that. They're looking big picture. I would think, based on everything that I saw, that she'll be playing against Georgia Tech. Assuming she doesn't go out and practice and
doesn't
turn it again or something like that.
A setback.
Yeah, exactly. Offense definitely looked a little different yesterday without her.
It did. No, it was a little more stagnant. It wasn't quite as up and down. Part of that, I think, especially in the second half, I think they were kind of okay with just, keeping the lead the way, because it was like 9 pretty consistently. Every time I was looking, it was 9. It was 9. It was 9. They got it up to 12, and then it was down to 7, but it was 9 a lot in the second half. And I feel like Notre Dame was okay with that. You know what I mean? They weren't trying to push it. They weren't trying to make any extra mistakes. And I think also the officiating seemed to be a little touchy to me in this game as well.
A lot of offensive fouls yesterday.
Weird.
It was weird. Yeah. Very weird. But Clemson's a really good 3-point shooting team, and Notre Dame did a really good job, even without Hidalgo, who's obviously the defensive, player of the year in the ACC from a year ago. Like, even without her, they defended the perimeter really well. Clemson missed their first 10 threes, and they ended up like 4 of 20 or something like that on threes, so they defended the 3-point line really well. Olivia Miles, played really well, and Leah King, who some people didn't want out of the transfer portal, man, she just keeps killing it. She just keeps killing it.
Who were those people?
Man, I was surprised because when we turned in our preseason ACC ballot, Leah King averaged a freaking double-double last year, and I had her on, first team. She did not end up on any of the preseason ACC stuff. And how you're going to leave Leah King off? I realize you're coming to Notre Dame, so people must have, I don't know if it's just like
they didn't think she's going to play enough.
Like, you had so many options with Notre Dame because you did have Westbeld and Citron and Hidalgo and Miles, so that's a lot. But like, where? And I'm obviously not disregarding anybody else by saying this, but where Notre Dame would be without Leah King, right? And she's just a freaking rebound machine, for one thing.
Yeah.
She's averaging over like 11 and a half rebounds a game. She's averaging a double-double, and she did it again yesterday. And like, teams keep finding out, you better guard her. You can't just leave her alone out around the elbow, like out around the free throw line, or even out to 18 feet, because that's what she started doing again yesterday. It's like, okay, leave me alone from 18, 19 feet. I'm going to keep hitting them, and so I don't know if people just kind of figured, well, she's going to go to Notre Dame, so she's not going to, be able to put up those kind of numbers. But all she does is go out and grab at least 10 rebounds every night. And that's really all that's the scoring is a bonus.
Yeah.
As long as she's going out and grabbing those rebounds, and she's still averaging a double-double.
She still scores.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Yeah, so she had another great game yesterday. And should be a pretty exciting one. Georgia Tech lost for the first time last week against Virginia Tech. They started off 15-0, and then they lost yesterday to Louisville, who's been pretty so-so this year. So Georgia Tech's lost 2 in a row coming into this one. And, after they had been kind of the surprise team in the ACC, starting off 15-0 this season. So still should be a pretty fun matchup. And, again, like, I would lean toward, I think Hannah Hidalgo's probably going to play Thursday night. Can't guarantee anything, but just based on it was definitely not severe, and like USMA 87 was saying, he assumed that they, figured they could afford, to sit her versus Clemson, and again, it's like, they're not going to say that out loud. Well, it's Clemson, so we could afford to sit her. But that's kind of exactly what I thought.
I mean, they still won by double digits, I believe. So
almost. It was 9.
Was it almost? Was it ended up being 9? So there you go. So it ended up being 9. So I was right. Yeah, crazy.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here this evening. We are counting down the days. We are a week away from Notre Dame and Ohio State in the national championship game. Hit the like button if you would, and of course, subscribe on our podcast platform. We're going to be cranking out more and more content all week long as we lead up to one of the biggest Notre Dame football games that we're ever going to see. National championship game in Atlanta coming up next week. Jesse and I are going to get more into the matchup yesterday. The whiteboard is coming tomorrow, so be ready for it, my friends. We'll talk to you then. IB Nation Sports Talk.